Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is when you're watching this. I don't have anyone watching live right now. Uh, as always, it's Gordon Causey. If you follow me on, if you know me from Twitter, it's Gordy Canuck. On Reddit, it's Grow a Set. Um, Thank you for watching. If you've watched my videos before, I've already given Candy the Wonder Pup her treat, and I'm just checking some things before I get going. You know, so I need to start with my disclaimer. And the disclaimer is that nothing in this video is to be construed as medical advice or expert scientific opinion or expert opinion on anything. These are the thoughts, views, and opinions of one individual, myself. Um, in terms of public health advice, uh, pay attention and listen to public health officials and adhere to their advice, their guidelines. Hopefully, that keeps me out of hot water with the fact checking community standards people at Google, YouTube, whatever. Wanted to talk tonight about media, and in particular, news media. I believe it's something I've said before on my videos, and it's called news programming for a reason. It's programming us what to think about, and more than that, and I think even more dangerous, is how to feel about things, what importance to give things, and Denzel Washington, the Hollywood actor, he was on a red carpet for an award show being interviewed. Might have been the Oscars, I forget, doesn't matter. And he offered up this little quip, which I think is a lot of wisdom in it. He said, if you don't watch the news, you're not informed. But if you do watch the news, then you're misinformed. I did a couple of videos on all the UFOs, and I would suggest that I was being a bit of a Pavlovian dog. I was being, I don't like to admit to being manipulated, but that was dominating the news, and it still is a big item in the news. And so I went along with it. When there are arguably, and I would contend, far more important things happening in the world than unidentified flying objects. If you haven't seen the movie Wag the Dog, I would highly recommend it. It's from the 90s. It's about how easy it is to capture the attention of the general populace and tell them what to think and how to feel about things. And what I wanted to do with this video is to go back to the one I did, I think it was yesterday, with respect to what's going on in Canada with Dr. William Makis, who has a Substack page, and I believe it's Dr. William Makis. Yeah, Dr. William Makis, MD, and his Substack report about the fact that within just the last few weeks, 5 young Canadian men aged between 17 and 19 have died in their sleep. You're not hearing this on the nightly news, so you're not supposed to think about it. And if you're not supposed to think about it, then you're not being told how to feel about it. And so if you tell someone, did you hear? 5 Canadian teenagers, 17 to 19, have died in the last, since from December 30th till now, not even 8 weeks. They really? Oh, I didn't know that, but they haven't been instructed in how to feel. I've made the point often that starting in March of 2020 and continuing on for several months afterwards, Canadians were programmed to worry about death and to be scared. And the way that was driven home is they took something which is perfectly normal and natural, something that has always happened, and that's the elderly, sick, and dying, passing away in nursing home, hospices, long-term care, basically palliative settings, places where people go to receive end-of-life care. An everyday normal occurrence. And yet the nightly news, starting March, April of 2020, it was bum, 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 bum. More terrifying news from Bobcaygeon, Ontario, where the tsunami of death has claimed another 5 victims to the deadly coronavirus. You know, driving emotion, driving fear, and that has allowed that is what got people so frightened of COVID. And to this day, there are still people going around terrified of this SARS-CoV-2 bug. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to delay it anymore. I'm going to read off the news as I think it should be presented. And for a bit of dramatic effect, I'm going to block my screen for a second and get in character because, this is what I think the nightly news should somewhat doesn't look right. I don't have the right backdrop or production values, but what the news should look and sound like in a general sense. So pardon me while I black you out. Take my hoodie off. Tuck my shirt back in. Oh, sit on the tail. Tie straight. All right. So, the nightly news with Gordon Causey. Our top story tonight. Yet another young Canadian male has died suddenly and tragically in his sleep. The latest victim was 17-year-old William Caron Cabrera of Laval, Quebec. William was an aspiring football player with no history of any serious health issues. His death is the 5th case of a young Canadian male dying in his sleep in just the past 8 weeks. And because government health officials don't publish data on all deaths or their causes, it is possible, and indeed perhaps even probable, that even more young Canadians are dying in their sleep than we're aware of. Joining us now is Dr. William Makis, an Edmonton, Alberta MD who specializes in nuclear medicine and oncology. It is Dr. Makis who has been tracking these tragic deaths, reading local media reports, GoFundMe pages, and publicly available death notices. And then a little interview with Dr. Makis, followed by our next story takes us back to East Palestine, Ohio, where local residents are terrified by recent events in the wake of the recent train derailment on the outskirts of this small town on the Pennsylvania border, about halfway between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Government officials have been engaged in what they're referring to as a controlled burn of the toxic and deadly chemical vinyl chloride. Now, there are reports of dead wildlife, farm animals, and even pets, and area residents fear what could be in store for them in the coming months and years, given that airborne vinyl chloride is a known and proven cause of various cancers, lymphomas, and leukemia. That is the way, if The nightly news wanted you, me, everyone to know about these deaths, these teenage kids dying in their sleep. If they wanted us to know, and more importantly, if they wanted us to care about it, I would submit that the news would be delivered in somewhat of the fashion that I just delivered it in. Obviously, I'm not a newscaster, I'm not a journalist, but that's my impression. They would report on it in the same manner that they were reporting on deaths in palliative settings. I hate that word, palliative. Not even sure I'm pronouncing it right. End of life care. And I'm going to just end off my video with a suggestion, with an endorsement. I've done it before, I'm doing it again. There's a gentleman, his name is Dr. John Campbell. I haven't linked it in this video, but you can find it. Just type Dr. John, John, Campbell, Campbell. And he's a nurse. He has a degree in nursing and is actually a teacher, a professor, if you will, of nurses. And he does an almost daily YouTube. He has a YouTube channel like myself. His is far better. And he's much better at this than I am. He got his PhD in delivering online educational material remotely, digitally. So he's much more adept at this stuff than I am. And he has recently, in the last 2-3 days, has been illuminating on what the National Health Service in Great Britain, in the UK, how they were treating COVID patients who would go in, who were in nursing homes or who came into hospital. And it is fine. He doesn't use over-the-top hyperbolic expressions to drive it. It's just the facts are terrifying. He shares screen captures. He prints off the actual physical paper of what the directives were from National Health Services to doctors in the UK. And he went back to April of 2020. And what they were saying that a patient experienced respiratory distress, having trouble breathing, fancy words, respiratory distress, someone who's having trouble breathing, and who was deemed to be at end of life. So you're talking about a nursing home, probably. Talking about a long-term care, a hospice type setting where the elderly are in place. And what their recommendation was the prescription or the administration of 2 drugs, which are normally used to ease a person into a comfortable passing. Opiates and a drug that would suppress respiration. So you have a patient struggling to breathe, anxious. So an opiate is prescribed to, I believe he said, he has the accreditations, I don't. And I'm going off memory, but the opiates would relieve the anxiety. And then the other drug, and I can't even pronounce it, Benazazide, something Zaprine. He said it's used to suppress respiration, breathing. And he does a far better job. John Campbell. Check out his videos. This is a guy who should be getting interviewed, or people talking about the information he's putting forth should be getting. This is what we should be talking about. This is what we should be looking at. We shouldn't be, the degree to which they're hyperventilating over this the UFOs. If you haven't seen that movie, Wag the Dog, I'll give you a brief synopsis. And you talk about a star-studded cast. It had Dustin Hoffman, Woody Harrelson, Robert De Niro, Dennis Leary, Willie Nelson was in the movie. I think Anne Hesh. I might be wrong on that one though. William Mooney. Like, it's an absolutely star-studded cast. And what has happened at the start of the movie, the president of the United States has been caught in a sexual indiscretion with what they call a Firefly girl. So, and it's just 2 weeks or so before the election. And the Robert De Niro's character is then brought in to manage the situation, and his job is to distract the American public's attention away from this sexual indiscretion and to get them focused on something else. Now, because this is such a volatile, eye-popping story, the president of the U.S. caught in a sexual indiscretion with a Firefly girl, kind of like a Girl Guide maybe, it requires a major distraction. And so this Robert De Niro's character orchestrates a war, but it's not real. But it's real on the news. There are planes being scrambled, there's intelligence reports, there's all manner of things, and he has to keep it going for the 2 weeks until the election. I'll invite you to watch that movie. It tells you about how the media can manipulate our mindsets. And if you live in my country, Canada, we have the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is a government crown corporation. So it's a branch of the federal government. But we also have CTV and Global, and we have newspapers like the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, mainstream media publications. However, in Canada, all those mainstream media outlets, even though they're privately held, are government subsidized. And how can you expect a media organization to report on an entity that they rely on for funding and survival? You talk about a conflict of interest. It's a conflict of interest on steroids. And unfortunately, the alternative is to look at something like Rebel News in Canada or the Western Standard. And when it comes to Rebel News, the degree of professionalism from Ezra Levant and his reporters is nothing near what you see on the nightly news. It's nothing near the quality of the journalism is, I'll say it, piss poor. They may get their facts right, but no one's concerned with being right anymore. Everyone's concerned with being first. I'm not the first to say that. That's been said by many other people. That it's not about being right. It's about being first. You got to capture the views. You got to capture the clicks. And so, and I'm guilty of it myself. Why did I do 2 videos on these stupid UFOs? Oh, because in my own mind, I thought, well, that will drive some engagement to my channel. And if it's 10 people watching this, if it's 5, whatever. I'll end it off. Try and keep it to around 20 minutes. I'll end it off with this. The media is not our friends. And so what we as Canadians, Americans, Aussies, Europeans, doesn't matter, anywhere in the Western developed world, everyone's got to become much more engaged. And if you think something is important, if you think Canadians, teenagers dying in their sleep is significant, then you need to talk about it. Talk about it with your friends, with your family, with your acquaintances, with your coworkers, with people you bump into on the street. If you're at the dog park and engaging in chatter about the Super Bowl, bring it up. Put it on the radar. That's the only way. Social media is all well and good, but it doesn't have the same impact as face-to-face, person-to-person conversation. So bring this stuff up. What's happening in East Palestine, Ohio, the control burn of a toxic chemical into the air, one with known and proven, and I took that out of a scientific paper that I read. So anyway, that's enough of me, enough of my video. You're welcome to like, subscribe, hit the bell, or share, and get rid of the tie. I've been dressed. It's probably been over a year since I put on a shirt and tie. We'll talk to you later.